This is Jordan Hale. You're tuned in to 99.3 FM, the last frequency. I don't even know where to start tonight. I went to a store this morning. One of the last still open near here. The shelves. They weren't just picked clean. They were skeletal. The kind of bear that doesn't come back tomorrow. There was a woman standing in the soup aisle. She was holding a can of lentils with both hands, shaking, tears on her cheeks. She wasn't crying because she couldn't find her brand. She was crying because that was all that was left, and it cost her nearly $6. Eggs are 30 a dozen now. That's not a slip-up. That's not a one-time thing. That's the new normal. A man behind me in line got told his SNAP card didn't go through. He walked out without saying a word, but I could hear something hit the ground outside a minute later. It was his phone. He smashed it. And the cashier, she just kept scanning. Nobody talks anymore in those lines. It's not like it was back in the pandemic days. Back then, there was fear. But people still made room for each other. Now, there's only hunger. And when people are hungry, they get quiet. That tight, brittle quiet. Like something's about to break. Field reports are coming in. Hold on. Okay. This one's from Ohio. A father, he didn't give a name, says he stole formula today. From a pharmacy shelf near Dayton. He said he left money, $35 in crumpled bills and quarters. The formula was $50. He said he couldn't wait anymore. He said the baby had been crying for hours, and his wife's milk dried up 5 days ago. I don't think he was trying to justify it. He just wanted someone to know. Another call just came in from Chicago. A teenager, maybe 16. He said the National Guard's outside all the Mariano's stores now. They've got rifles, batons, and gas canisters. Said people are still trying to rush the doors when meat gets restocked. He said it doesn't even matter anymore. Nobody can afford the meat. People are trading things now. Jewelry, phones, old baseball cards. One woman in Montreal, she gave up her wedding ring for a pack of canned peaches. It's not even about nutrition anymore. It's about anything you can open without heat and eat with your hands. Hang on. I've got an audio clip. Attention customers. Due to unrest, our store will be closing in 10 minutes. Please proceed to checkout. And then the screaming starts. You hear that glass break? That wasn't an accident. Someone tossed a wine bottle through the baby food section. You can hear the alarm. Then silence. Even the security guards stopped trying. I keep thinking about my mom. Back in the pandemic, she'd make me wait in the car while she lined up for rice and flour. She always looked scared when she came out, like she'd seen something awful in there. But she never said much. Today, I saw that same look on a man's face. He wasn't scared for himself. He had a toddler on his hip and no cart, no bag, just a single can of beans. Back then, it was fear. Today, it's hunger. And we're only a week in. I'll keep going. But if you're out there and you've seen it yourself, call in. Let me know what it looks like where you are. I need to know we're not alone in this. More in a moment. You're still with me. This is Jordan Hale, and this is still 99.3 FM, the last frequency. It's quiet outside now. Too quiet. No sirens, no engines, just wind and whatever's left. I keep thinking someone will step in. Some truck will pull in. Some voice will break through with news that things are turning around. But it doesn't come. It just gets quieter. We got a scanner report from Dallas. Came through maybe 10 minutes ago. Hold on. playing it now. Looting the Whole Foods, shots fired near produce section, possible casualties in backloading dock. Then nothing. We tried to reach the local emergency feed. It's offline. We've just lost Dallas. It's hard to say what that means anymore. Lost used to mean overrun, flood, fire, something massive. Now it just means empty. It means nobody's coming out of that store with groceries. I've got a letter here. It was read over ham radio from a grandmother in Toronto. I copied it down. She says, "I haven't eaten in 2 days. My daughter brings me tea and says it's enough, but I see how thin she's gotten. I pretend not to notice that she doesn't eat either." That's where we are. People pretending not to be hungry just so someone else can eat. Another caller just got through from Memphis. He was crying, said he split a rat 5 ways behind an old Waffle House. Didn't know how to cook it. They just burned it over a shopping cart fire. He said the worst part wasn't the taste. It was the silence. How nobody said anything while they ate. Just chewing and looking at their hands. I don't have advice. I'm not here to tell you how to fix this. I'm not a leader. I'm not a general. I'm just a voice with a microphone and an antenna that hasn't gone cold yet. We did get a tip from a woman in Kansas. Says her town started bartering with paper food stamps again. Not digital. Those are worthless now. She said they printed old coupons on a library copier and started handing them out like currency. One man tried to trade a can of peaches for a bottle of aspirin. Another tried to trade a bag of sugar for 6 bullets. That's the math now. We've heard of at least 3 towns with something they're calling a food marshal. One person with the keys to the local supply room. They get to decide who eats and when. No votes. No committee. Just them and a notebook. I don't know if it's smart, but I know it's happening. And sometimes a bad system is better than no system at all. We also got word that the SNAP system, government food support, it's been down for 3 days. Nobody's getting their deposits. Cards are empty. Some ATMs are still showing balances, but no way to access them. I called the hotline. It just rang. They always said, "Help is coming." But the truth is, that line doesn't mean anything anymore. I remember standing outside a grocery store with a man I didn't know last week. He looked at the paper sign on the door, closed until further notice, and said, "It's here." I asked what he meant. He didn't answer. Maybe he was right. Maybe we're not starving tomorrow. Maybe we're starving now. More calls are coming in. I'll stay with you as long as I can. This is Jordan Hale. 99.3 FM, the last frequency. We keep going. It's almost midnight here. I haven't looked at a clock in hours, but I can feel it. The way the cold creeps a little deeper into the concrete. The way the wind presses harder against the shutters. I think night feels longer now because it gives people time to think about what they didn't find that day. What they couldn't bring home. What they promised their kids and didn't deliver. Someone left a voicemail. I didn't catch the beginning. Just a man's voice. He was whispering. He said, "I waited in line for 3 hours and still went home with nothing. Just a receipt that said declined." Then he laughed once. Not a loud laugh, just the kind that slips out when the only other option is crying. He didn't leave a name, didn't need to. Could have been anyone. There was a woman near the station this afternoon. She had a cardboard sign in her hand. "We'll clean, sew, or cook for food." Her voice was hoarse, barely there. People passed her like she was invisible. One man stopped, looked her over, and offered her a bottle of ketchup. That was it. Just ketchup. like he was doing her a favor. She took it. You take what you can now. Pride doesn't feed you. The grocery store nearest me has started locking up the canned goods. Not the liquor, not the cigarettes, the food. They installed a chain across the aisle, and only one staff member has the key. He's just a kid, maybe 20. You can tell it's getting to him. I saw him fumble the lock today with shaking hands while two women waited behind him, arguing about who was there first. One of them had a black eye. I don't think it was fresh. I don't think it came from today. I overheard a man telling his son that dinner was going to be liquid night. That's what they're calling it now, when you just drink broth or warm water with salt. Give the body something that feels like food, even if it isn't. He said it with a smile, like it was a game. The boy nodded, and I don't think he believed him, but he played along. These aren't stories anymore. They're normal now. The way you know it's real is by how quiet it gets when someone says they're hungry. Nobody reacts. Nobody gasps. They just nod like that's a fact you can't change, like the weather. I remember standing in line at the store when I was younger. I think I was 8, maybe 9. My mom had a list, always the same one. Rice, beans, a bag of apples if they weren't too bruised. She always stood with her back straight, like if she looked worried it would make me worry. But I watched her eyes the whole time, and I saw it every time the shelves were half empty. That was fear. And back then, there was still food. There were still trucks running. People still had jobs. That was fear. What we have now isn't fear. It's something heavier. It's that hollow feeling in your chest when you realize that there's nothing coming. No restock, no delivery, just more empty space. Some of the older neighbors are starting to ration in their own way. One woman told me she's eating every other day, drinking hot water in between. Says it stretches her supply. Says it keeps the headaches away. She used to be a nurse. Now she spends her time warning kids not to take candy from strangers, not because it might be poisoned, but because it might be the last thing that person has. There's been talk in a nearby town about someone breaking into homes, not for electronics or money, just pantries. They're not even robbing everything. They're taking a little from each house, like they think if they take only some, they won't get caught. Or maybe they think it's less cruel that way. One man said he came home and found his peanut butter missing. Just that. Left the cereal, left the pasta, took the peanut butter. He said his daughter cried, not because it was gone, but because it was her favorite, and she thought someone had watched them eat. We got a call from a woman in Arizona. She said she traded her engagement ring for a jar of pickles. Not even a full jar, just the last 5 floating at the bottom. The man who traded with her said it was a fair deal. She agreed, and she said something I haven't stopped thinking about. She said, "I loved my husband, but I loved being full more." These moments are piling up, like a slow avalanche, one that doesn't hit all at once but keeps rolling, crushing, suffocating in silence. And it's not just the big cities. It's not just New York or LA. I heard from a man outside Billings, Montana. He said the local store now opens for just 2 hours a day. No music, no carts, no lines, just a buzzer when the door unlocks. First come, first served. He said people don't talk anymore. They breathe, they grab, they leave. I know this all sounds like the end, but I don't think it is. It's worse than that. It's the slow part before the end. The part where people still believe, even if just barely, that things might turn around, that something might come to help, that we'll figure this out. But the truth? I don't know if help is coming. I don't even know if help is trying. I'll stay here a little longer. The light's still on, the antenna's still up, and my stomach is still empty, same as yesterday. This is Jordan Hale, 99.3 FM, the last frequency. I'm still here. I watched a man eat raw oats out of his hand today. He was standing outside what used to be a farmer's market. The stalls were closed, the canopies gone. He had a paper cup he'd found somewhere, probably a coffee cup. It was filled with rolled oats, dry and cold, and he just stood there scooping them into his mouth like it was normal, like this was breakfast. I don't know where he got them. I didn't ask. I didn't want to. That's what it's like now. Everyone's stomach is loud, but their mouths are quiet. I got a message on the line from a teacher in Nebraska. She said her district still hands out free lunches to kids who come by the school, even if the schools are shut down, even if they're not students anymore. But the boxes are getting smaller. One sandwich, a handful of raisins, a juice box if you're lucky. She says she started handing out the sandwiches without the meat, just bread and a slice of lettuce, and the kids still say thank you. That's what broke her, she said. The thank you. That they'd say it like they didn't expect more, like they'd already stopped hoping. She told me that last week a boy came by twice, once in the morning, again in the afternoon. He wore a different hoodie each time, trying to trick her. She gave him a lunch both times. She cried when she told me that. I didn't interrupt her. I think that's the new economy now. Not dollars, not gold. It's bread and oatmeal, juice boxes and cans with labels half peeled off. I saw a woman offer a man a can of creamed corn for a pair of gloves. He said no. He said the gloves were all he had left from his brother. I don't know what hurt more, the refusal, or the way she just nodded and walked away. We're hearing that more grocery chains are closing locations by the day, not because of looting, not because of threats, just because they can't get the trucks through. Fuel's too expensive. Drivers don't want the risk. One company sent a single truck across 4 states with one delivery. Rice, beans, oil. They were robbed on the interstate. Not hijacked like in the movies. Just forced off the road by 5 cars and stripped clean. Nobody was hurt, but nothing arrived. You don't think about how fragile the system is until you see it stop moving. Until you realize that your dinner depends on someone hundreds of miles away who's probably sitting in a truck right now deciding whether to risk driving into a city that's starving. One man said he drove through Iowa and didn't see a single stocked gas station. He had 2 protein bars left and no way to refuel. He left the truck, walked away, took his chances on foot. I think we'll see more of that. The real problem is this. It's not just the food. It's what happens to people when food becomes scarce. We haven't lost the grocery stores. We've lost what they stood for. Safety, routine. That strange comfort of picking up a basket and knowing the shelves would be full, the lights would be on, and the checkout line might be long, but you'd leave with something. That's gone now. I keep replaying this voice message from a man in upstate New York. He said he hasn't eaten in nearly 3 days. His wife made a soup out of boiled apple peels and onion skins. He said they added salt and called it broth. He said their 6-year-old said, it tasted like paper but warmer. And they all smiled, because that was the only thing to smile about. The message cuts off after that. I don't know what happened. I don't know if he'll call again. I sat here earlier thinking about how fast everything snapped. 7 days. That's how long it's been since prices started climbing like a fire spreading across a dry field. 3 days since anyone I know has seen fresh meat on a shelf. 1 day since the nearest store closed for good. And now, people are stealing from each other, bartering old jewelry, and boiling garbage just to make it to the next sunrise. There's something awful in knowing that this isn't a storm. It's not a fire you can put out. It's just hunger. Slow, gnawing, patient. It waits. And it doesn't care who you are. The phones have been quieter tonight. Maybe people are conserving their batteries. Maybe they're sleeping through the worst of it. Or maybe they've given up trying to find someone who'll listen. But I'm still here. I'll stay on the air as long as the power lets me. There's an old fridge in the room with me. It doesn't work anymore. There's nothing in it but the echo of how things used to be. That hum that used to fill the silence of a quiet night. That's gone too. Now the silence is just silence. If anyone out there knows how to preserve food, how to grow it, how to trade for it without getting robbed, call in. I'm keeping a notebook. Not because it'll fix anything, but because someone has to write it down. Someone has to remember what it was like when we still believed things would get better. This is Jordan Hale. I haven't eaten since yesterday. I'll probably skip tonight. Not because I'm strong, just because someone else might need what I have more. You're listening to 99.3 FM, the last frequency, and I'm not leaving yet. I heard from a woman in Pennsylvania this morning. She walked 15 miles to get to a payphone still connected to a local grid just to call me. Her voice was soft, tired but not shaky. She said she doesn't feel hungry anymore, just cold. Said her body gave up on growling. Now it just waits. She lives alone in an old house on the edge of a coal town. Said her neighbors are mostly gone. Some moved out, some disappeared. She checks on the ones who stayed, knocks on their doors twice a week, even if they don't answer. Leaves bits of food when she has any. She said last week she left half a stale bagel wrapped in a dish towel on a windowsill. 2 days later, it was gone. She didn't ask who took it. She just hoped it helped. Before she hung up, she said something that stuck. You think you know who you are when you've got enough to eat. Turns out that's not you. That's just the version that isn't starving. I haven't stopped thinking about that, not all day. I've been trying to track the supply routes, where they failed, why they stopped. Most people don't want to talk about the logistics. I get that. But the truth is, it matters. Because this didn't just fall apart. It was peeled apart. Slowly. Quietly. Piece by piece. Diesel costs more than meat now. Truckers started paying out of pocket until it broke them. Then the trucks stopped moving. Fertilizer prices shot up last month. Farmers couldn't cover it. Fewer crops. Then came the fuel shortages. Then the road closures. Then the riots in the port cities. Now, here we are. Shelves cleared, lights dimmed, and cashiers quitting mid-shift because they're afraid they won't make it home before someone grabs them for whatever's left in their bag. Someone called in earlier from Oregon, said her local grocer made an announcement yesterday morning. They'd only be delivering to 2 cities from now on. Not 5, just 2. The rest were no longer viable. That's the word they used, viable. Like a town is a crop. If it doesn't grow fast enough, you stop watering it. She asked what happens to everyone else. I didn't have an answer. You ever watch a parent try to lie to their kid about food? It's not like in the movies. There's no dramatic music, no slow motion. It's just a quiet sentence delivered while looking in the other direction. I already ate, they'll say, or I'm not hungry, sweetheart. And the kid knows. Kids always know. but they pretend anyway, because pretending is safer than asking why. A man from Georgia told me he caught himself counting his crackers, not how many were left, how many bites he could stretch one into. He said he used to laugh at people who measured things in bites. Now it's how he decides if he can sleep. And then there's the bartering. It's not orderly. It's not a system. It's desperation behind closed doors. One woman said she swapped her child's asthma inhaler for a gallon of cooking oil. She hasn't told her son yet. She's hoping his lungs stay calm long enough for her to trade back. You hear that, and your first thought might be judgment. But then you think longer, and you realize there are no good choices anymore, just ones that hurt less. I remember when grocery stores used to have music. Remember that? Tinny pop songs playing over the speakers. People humming under their breath while they picked out cereal. Now there's no music, just announcements. Half the time they're recorded, but sometimes someone's still reading them, and their voice always sounds like it's cracking at the edges. Due to shortages, due to unrest, due to circumstances beyond our control. I walked through a store last week where all the lights had been turned off except the ones over the checkout counters. The aisles were dark. People used their phones as flashlights. It felt like walking through a cave, except caves don't have price tags on broken shelves. There was a kid in there. He couldn't have been older than 10. He was dragging a plastic basket across the floor. It was too heavy for him to lift. It had a bottle of apple juice and a single can of black beans. That's it. He held on to that can like it was gold. And when someone bumped into him and it rolled out, he scrambled after it so fast I thought he'd hurt himself. He didn't cry. He just grabbed it and held it to his chest like it was a kitten. I wanted to tell him it was going to be okay, but it didn't feel right to lie. I keep hearing whispers about the government stepping in, FEMA this, military that. But every time someone says help is coming, I hear from 3 more people who've seen nothing. A grandmother in Alberta says the food trucks bypassed her town entirely. A single convoy rolled through but didn't stop, left nothing, no explanation. People are starting to move. Not in big waves yet, but enough to notice. Families leaving houses behind, looking for towns that might still have something left. But where do you go when everywhere is the same? And what happens when they get to a place that's already starving? That's what worries me most. That this doesn't end with hunger. It ends with conflict. When your neighbor has a bag of rice and you don't, and your child is crying in the next room, that's when things break. Not because people are evil, but because hunger changes the rules. This is Jordan Hale, 99.3 FM, the last frequency. If your hands are shaking, if your stomach is empty, if you're scared, you're not alone. Neither am I. I'm still here, still with you. It's been 2 hours since I last heard from anyone on the eastern seaboard. Lines are still open, signals strong, but nothing's coming through. That's the kind of silence that crawls under your skin. Not the peaceful kind, not the type that lets you rest. It's the kind that makes you check your doors twice and stare at the hallway as if it might change. Like maybe someone's standing there, holding something they took without asking. Like maybe the silence isn't a lull, it's a warning. I was flipping through a notebook earlier, one I've kept since all this started. I write everything down now. What I see, what I hear, what people say when they think nobody's listening. You'd be surprised what comes out of someone's mouth when their hands are empty and their stomachs have stopped pretending they're full. There's this one entry I keep returning to. A man from Detroit, middle-aged, used to be a truck mechanic. He said the hardest part wasn't the hunger. It was the way his wife looked at him when the food ran out. Like she didn't recognize him anymore. Not because he changed, but because the person she married had always managed to fix things. And this was something he couldn't fix. That's what nobody tells you. Hunger doesn't just hurt the body, it rewrites the memory. It makes you forget what laughter sounded like before it came with guilt. It makes you question every good moment, wondering if it was real or just something you imagined in a better world. I spoke to someone just outside Tucson, a young woman. She said she watches her neighbors through her window at night, not because she's nosy, because she's scared. Scared that someone's going to come through her door for the last can of fruit she has. She told me she sleeps with one hand on her pantry handle, as if she's guarding a treasure. She said something else. Said she used to work in a bakery, loved the smell of rising dough. Now even the thought of that smell makes her chest ache. She dreams about flour. Just flour. Says she'd give anything to touch it again, to press it into her palms and pretend like she had enough to make something. I keep coming back to this one moment from my own past. Years ago, long before this. I was in line at a grocery store, maybe 22, broke, trying to buy a box of pasta and a jar of sauce with the last crumpled bills in my wallet. The woman in front of me had a full cart. She looked back at me, then down at my hands, and without saying a word, she paid for my food. I thanked her. She didn't say anything, just nodded once and left. I've never forgotten that, and now I wonder how many people like her are out there tonight. People who would give, even when they're running low themselves. People who still believe that kindness isn't something you save for better days. I hope she's safe. I hope she's eating. The lines at stores aren't lines anymore. They're crowds. Masses of people pushing forward, not because they're angry, but because they're afraid that if they stay still, the doors will close before they get through. And they're right. That's happening more and more, stores locking up at random. No schedule, no warning, just someone flipping the switch and walking away. I heard from a security guard who used to work at a supermarket in Philadelphia. He said on his last shift, a crowd broke in before opening. Not with guns, not with violence, just desperation. They tore the metal gates off with bare hands and broken tools, and then they didn't steal. They just took, quietly, milk, bread, diapers. Nobody shouted, nobody ran. He didn't try to stop them. He walked out the back and didn't go back. The woman who managed the store was found sitting by the freezer section later that day, just sitting. Said she couldn't stop shaking. Said she kept hearing the sound of baby shoes on the linoleum floor, even when the store was empty. We're breaking in quiet ways now. Not with fire, not with screaming. Just in the slow cracking of routines, the erosion of things we thought were permanent. Someone from a town in northern Maine said they've stopped accepting cash altogether. You pay with food, or you don't get in. He said he gave a neighbor a half-used jar of peanut butter, just so he could fill up his bike tires. That's the trade. Protein for air. Another man said he watched his sister trade her last can of tuna for a roll of toilet paper. She said it was worth it. She said dignity still mattered. But later, when she tried to eat plain rice for dinner, she started crying and didn't stop for an hour. Nobody has the right answers anymore. Just different ways of saying, I'm still here. And I think that's all anyone really wants now. To be seen, to be heard, to be known, even if all they have left to offer is the sound of a stomach growling and the shape of a silhouette behind a dark window. This is Jordan Hale, still broadcasting, still writing, still hoping that maybe, just maybe, someone out there hears this and knows they're not the last one standing. We're not okay, but we're still here, and right now, that's something. There's something strange about the way the air feels now, just after sundown. It's heavier, like the sky knows what's happening, and it's pressing down just enough to make breathing a little harder, a little more careful. I stood outside earlier, listening, not for birds, not for traffic. Those are gone. I was listening for the quiet, that kind that settles after the last generator runs out, after the last footsteps fade down an alley, after the last shopping cart clatters into stillness. I think quiet's the scariest sound we have left. Someone called from a trailer park near Albuquerque, said there's a woman going door to door with a notebook and a flashlight, asking people what food they still have, asking if they'll pool it. She's not from any organization, not FEMA, not the church, just a woman with a clipboard trying to build a wall out of what's left before it all falls down. He said at first people slammed the door in her face, but she kept coming. Third day, someone let her in. Now there are 20 of them sharing 3 meals a day, barely enough to stretch, but more than they had alone. He told me her name is Carla. I don't know her, but I think about her more than I think about the president. She's real. She's working. She's not waiting for orders or permission. I got a handwritten letter scanned and emailed from someone in Ontario. I print them out when I can. It's safer that way. Slower, yes, but safer. The letter was short, less than a page, but every line felt like it had been chewed on, like the pen dug deeper with every sentence. It read, "My son asked me what breakfast was, not what we were having, what it meant. I told him it used to be the first meal of the day. He asked what that word meant, meal. I couldn't answer." She didn't sign the letter, just ended it with, "I'm sorry." We are watching language itself erode. The words we use to live by are slipping from our mouths. Breakfast, dinner, grocery, fresh. These aren't just words, they're memories now. Words we whisper like lullabies because saying them too loud might make us remember how things used to taste. I spoke with someone from Missouri. He used to be a butcher. Said he hasn't touched a knife in 2 months. Says the only meat he sees now is roadkill, and even that gets picked up fast. He told me he once cut meat for 30 years, and now he can't even look at a chicken bone without feeling like he's holding gold. Said the other day, he saw a neighbor boiling bones someone had thrown away. No meat left, just marrow, and even that barely. He told me, "I used to tell my kids to eat slower, to savor. Now I tell them to chew longer so their stomach thinks they had more." I didn't ask how old his kids were. I couldn't. The last man who called in said he used to stock vending machines, said he started breaking into the ones still standing. Half of them are already empty, the rest jammed. But sometimes he gets lucky. A stuck granola bar, a forgotten soda. He says he drinks them warm, always warm, never cold anymore. Says he doesn't mind. Says the fizz helps him feel like something's still alive. We had someone else, a woman this time, tell us about a bodega in Queens that still has a few things left, if you pay in gold. Not cash, not cards, not even barter, just jewelry. She said she gave up her grandmother's necklace for 3 cans of beans and a bottle of stale vegetable oil. Said she wore that necklace to every family dinner for 20 years. Said now it's sitting behind a plexiglass counter while she wonders how long the beans will last. She also said the owner had lost 30 pounds in 6 weeks and hadn't smiled once since January. There's no right way to do this. Some places have formed ration boards. Others have started trade circles. Some towns hoard. Some give. Some pretend nothing's wrong. And some are already beyond pretending. There's a stretch of road near the station. I walked it yesterday, thinking maybe I'd find something left behind. A wrapper, a broken crate, anything. I found a grocery cart, bent and tipped over on its side. Inside was a cardboard box with 2 plastic forks, a single packet of soy sauce, and a note. It said, "Don't take unless you need it." I left it. Not because I didn't need it, but because I wasn't sure if someone else needed it more. And that's where we are. That's the last inch of what's holding people together. That tiny voice in our heads that says, maybe someone else is hungrier. Maybe someone else has less. It's not law. It's not order. It's not even hope. It's just decency. Quiet, brittle decency. If you're out there and you're still holding on to that, write to me. Call me. Even if you've got nothing but a story. Especially then. Because we've got enough noise in the world already. What we need now is to remember that someone is listening. This is Jordan Hale, broadcasting as long as I can. From what's left of this world on 99.3 FM. The last frequency. I haven't heard from the family up north in almost 3 days now. They used to check in every night like clockwork, right around this time. They had a kid, maybe 6 or 7, who'd sing into the phone while his mom talked. Just a few seconds, never a full song, just enough to prove he was okay. She said he liked hearing his own voice over the radio, that it made him feel famous. The last message I got from them said the town's general store had been shut down by the owners. They packed up and left without warning, took everything they could carry, and boarded up the rest. Since then, nothing. Just silence. It's easy to forget how quickly people can disappear now. One day, you're hearing someone's voice. The next, you're staring at a dial tone, wondering if you imagined them at all. A man from South Dakota called this morning. Said his farm was down to the last bag of grain. He's been planting potatoes in buckets inside his garage, trying to shield them from the cold. Said the soil he has left is so dry, it crumbles when he touches it. He's been watering with melted snow and hoping it's enough. He's not growing for money anymore. He's growing for survival. Said something that stuck with me. It's not about feeding the future anymore. It's just about outliving the hunger. He said it like it wasn't tragic, just fact. There's a shift happening across every town I've heard from. It's not panic anymore. It's resignation. That slow, quiet settling into the idea that this is just how it's going to be. That the shelves won't fill back up. That the trucks won't come. That the old life isn't paused. It's gone. A teenager from St. Louis told me he saw his mom trade her wedding dress for 5 bags of rice. Not new rice. Old yellowing rice from a storage unit someone broke open. She folded the dress carefully, placed it in a plastic bin, and didn't cry until they were back home. He said she cooked 1 cup that night and let him eat the first bowl. Said she told him it was better than cake. He didn't believe her, but he said it tasted like kindness, and that was enough. I don't know if I've ever truly understood what hunger does to a person, not just to their body, but to their mind. It turns time into something sharp. You stop thinking in weeks or even days. You think in bites. How many are left? How many you can spare? how many you can fake if someone's watching. I talked to a woman near Cincinnati who said her sister's been measuring her meals with a medicine cup. 2 ounces of soup for lunch. 3 if she's walking that day. A boiled carrot and a splash of broth if there's company. She's keeping a journal, not for memory, but for math. Counting calories like coins, praying it adds up to another week. We used to count steps on smartwatches. Now we count spoonfuls. A man who called himself Benny rang in last night. Said he used to manage a gas station. Told me the shelves were stripped in less than 12 hours once the food truck stopped arriving. People didn't even take the chips first. They went straight for the canned dog food. Said it was better than nothing. Said it had protein. That was the word they used. Protein. Like they were reading it off a label instead of imagining the taste. He said he took 1 can himself, and even now, he hasn't brought himself to open it. It just sits on the passenger seat of his car, like a backup plan he doesn't want to admit he needs. He asked me if that makes him weak. I told him no. There's a house I pass sometimes when I walk to the station. 2 stories, blue shutters. The yard used to have wind chimes. Now they're silent. Tied down. I noticed yesterday that someone had painted food on the garage door in big white letters. Not need food, just food. A message for anyone desperate enough to come knocking. An invitation or a warning. I couldn't tell. Either way, the house looked full. Not of people. Of tension. I kept walking. I think about how food used to be about choice, organic or not, local or imported, gluten-free, grass-fed, ethically sourced. Those words meant something. They meant abundance. They meant the luxury of deciding not just what to eat, but how it was made, where it came from, who touched it. Now food means survival. Full stop. A caller from the Bronx said people are boiling dandelions in their kitchens, eating tree bark steeped in salt water. He said he saw a man dig through sidewalk mulch looking for bugs. Said nobody laughed, nobody stared. Just turned their eyes and kept walking. Because everyone's got their own version of low now, and no one wants to admit how close they are to it. There's a couple near me who've started selling soup on their porch. Not for money. For favors. A good coat, a working flashlight, spare batteries. They don't advertise. They don't post signs. You just walk by, and if you look hungry enough, they wave you in. I saw someone trade a can of carrots for a razor blade. Said he couldn't stand his face anymore. Said the beard made him feel older than he was. I think it made him feel powerless. Like his body was getting away from him, growing wild while the rest of his life unraveled. We're not just starving. We're breaking in subtle ways. Ways that don't scream. Ways that don't bleed. People used to say you could tell a country's strength by how it fed its people. I think now you can tell by how its people feed each other. That's the only hope I have left. That we don't forget how to give. This is Jordan Hale, still here at 99.3 FM, still holding the mic like it matters. If you've got anything to trade, even a story, I'm listening. Someone left a bag of apples on the steps outside this station. No note, no sound, just a torn grocery sack with 4 bruised red apples sitting inside. They weren't fresh, nothing is anymore, but they were clean. Someone had taken the time to wipe them off. One still had a stem. I waited a few hours before touching them. I thought maybe it was a trap, or maybe someone would come back, but they didn't. They just left them, like a message without words. I ate one of them an hour ago, slowly, bite by bite. It wasn't sweet, but it tasted like something alive, something that came from the ground, from dirt, not a shelf. And that meant something. I don't know who left them, but if you're listening, thank you. You didn't just feed me. You reminded me there's still some part of us that remembers how to be human. A woman from Milwaukee called earlier. She said her building has started sharing cooking duties floor by floor. Monday is the 3rd floor. Tuesday is the 5th. Whoever has the most left cooks what they can and shares it with the others. She said one neighbor traded a pressure cooker for a dozen cans of tomatoes. Said someone else used it to make rice and beans last night. Fed 17 people. No meat, no salt, just warmth. She said the hallway smelled like her childhood. We talk a lot about hunger as this physical thing, your stomach turning, your hands shaking, your head fogging over. But I think the harder part is emotional. It's what happens when food stops being part of your routine and starts being your obsession. When you wake up thinking about it and fall asleep, wondering what you'll do if tomorrow brings nothing. A mother from Jackson said her daughter now hides crackers under her pillow. Not to eat them, just to know they're there. Said the girl counts them at night, whispers numbers to herself before bed. Like that's what keeps the nightmares away. She said her daughter used to ask for bedtime stories. Now she asks how many cans are left. That's the kind of change nobody talks about in the news. The slow warping of childhood, the quiet theft of normal. I got a call from an old man in Virginia. He lives alone. Says he hasn't spoken to anyone in 3 weeks. Just listens. He said, "Jordan, I keep tuning in not because I'm scared, but because I want to hear someone who's still got the strength to speak." He paused. "You don't sound like you're pretending, and that's enough for me." I didn't know what to say to that. I still don't. I've noticed something strange lately. People aren't asking for dates anymore. Nobody cares what day it is. They just want to know if the store opened, if someone got a shipment, if the line outside the gas station moved. Time isn't measured in minutes or months anymore. It's measured in calories, in chances, in what you came home with. Someone wrote to me from Minnesota, said they used to be an accountant. Now they forage for weeds along the highway. They wrote out a list of safe plants they've tested: clover, burdock, wild onion. Said they carry a small book in their coat pocket just in case they forget what's poisonous. They said their biggest fear isn't getting caught by someone desperate. It's picking the wrong leaf in the dark. They said if I wanted, I could read the list on air. I think I might. Not tonight, though. Tonight, I want to stay with the stories. A woman who used to be a waitress in Denver said she's still got her apron, not because she needs it, but because it reminds her of when feeding people felt normal. She said the cloth is stained with grease and marinara and whatever that soup of the day used to be. She holds it sometimes when the hunger gets too loud. She told me, "It makes me remember I used to be part of something." I don't think she was talking about the restaurant. A boy, he didn't give his age, called from a payphone in Kansas City. He said his dad told him to stay put while he went to look for food. That was 5 days ago. The boy still sits by the phone every afternoon. He said if he hears anything that sounds like footsteps, he picks up the receiver and pretends he's talking to someone. Said it makes the time pass. I asked him if he had food. He said, "I've got some peanut butter and a spoon." Then he laughed, not because it was funny, just because he wanted to sound strong. There's a city in New Mexico where the mayor's office issued a statement telling people to plant anything they can, anywhere they can. Sidewalk cracks, alley pots, rooftops, gutters. Grow something, the paper said. Anything. We'll figure the rest out later. Someone sent me a photo of a tomato plant growing out of a rusted coffee can on a windowsill. It had one fruit on it, small, green. But it was there. I stared at that photo for a long time. This isn't over. I don't know what over would even look like. But the worst part isn't that people are going hungry. It's that people are going hungry in silence, behind closed doors, alone. We have to keep talking. We have to keep sharing, even if it's just through crackling radio signals and torn envelopes and secondhand stories scribbled in the margins of old books. Because if we forget how to speak, we forget how to ask. And if we forget how to ask, we forget that someone might still be listening. This is Jordan Hale. Still here. Still hungry. Still yours. Broadcasting on 99.3 FM, the last frequency. There's something about watching the sky turn that makes this feel more permanent. Tonight I stood at the edge of the lot, facing west. The clouds had cracked just enough to let some light bleed through, but it wasn't golden or warm. It was the kind of light that flickers across broken glass and metal, pale and strange, like the sky was remembering a color it hadn't used in a while. It lasted for maybe 10 minutes. Then the gray swallowed it again. I stood there longer than I meant to. I think I was waiting for something. Not a person. Not a miracle. Just something different than the silence. People used to say you could smell the seasons change. Firewood in October, rain on the pavement, fresh grass in the spring. Now it all smells like dust. Dust and salt. The kind of salt that lingers when there's no meat to cover it up. I smelled it when I walked past the boarded-up grocery down the road. Someone had broken in again, but not for anything valuable. The place had already been stripped. They went for the cardboard boxes, the packaging, the last traces of flavor. That's where we're at now, chewing through yesterday's leftovers just to fill the space in our mouths. I got a call today from a man in Baton Rouge. He said he used to be a produce driver, ran loads of apples and lettuce up the Eastern Corridor. He told me he hasn't driven in weeks. The routes are gone. The pay's gone. But he still keeps the rig parked outside his apartment, polished and spotless. Not because he plans to leave, but because it reminds him of motion, of purpose. He said he sits in the cab most nights, turns on the dash lights, and imagines his hands on the wheel. Sometimes he plays old dispatch recordings he saved on a thumb drive, voices calling out roads and exits like it still matters. I didn't interrupt. I just let him talk. A woman from New Jersey sent me a note. She's been trying to teach her son how to plant things, tomatoes mostly, but they haven't had seeds in a month. So she let him practice with pebbles, digging holes, burying, watering with what little she can spare. She says it's pretend, but it keeps him busy, keeps his hands in the soil. She told me, maybe it's better he believes something will grow. I think she knows it won't, not yet. But belief is its own kind of food, a thinner kind, but something. Someone else told me their town installed curfews, not for crime, not for looting, but to stop people from begging. Said too many families were wandering door to door after sunset asking for leftovers. Not shouting, not banging, just standing on porches and waiting. Quietly, hoping. The city said it was creating panic. So they shut it down. But hunger doesn't follow curfews, neither does grief. I got a broken voicemail from a man in Detroit, hard to make out. He was breathing hard, said something about trading tools for rice and getting jumped before he made it home. I could hear traffic in the background, or maybe sirens. The last thing he said was, "I just wanted to make soup." The message cut off there. I hope he got home. There was a time not that long ago when food brought people together. Birthdays, holidays, Sunday nights. I used to cook with friends. We'd crowd into a kitchen with music on too loud, arguing about garlic and salt and whether the pasta was done. We'd laugh, not politely, not carefully. The kind of laughter that fills a room before the meal's even started. I think about that now, and I try to remember the sound, because nobody laughs like that anymore. There's a father near Atlanta who's been sleeping in his car outside a distribution center. He used to work there, says he still knows the schedule, even though they stopped letting people in weeks ago. He sleeps there, hoping someone from inside will recognize him, bring something out, say his name. He said the last time he spoke to his daughter, she asked him what hunger meant. He told her it meant your stomach is learning how to be patient. She didn't understand, but she stopped asking. There's something painful about that. When the questions stop. I had a man from British Columbia tell me his neighbors are rationing food by scent. Not taste, not weight, scent. They warm things, pass them around the room, let people smell it before serving. So the body feels like it's eating more than it is. He said his wife closes her eyes when she smells potatoes. She never liked them before. But now she says it's her favorite part of the day. There's a market in Chicago, what's left of it, where people come not to buy, but to trade stories. Not organized ones, just passing phrases. Someone saw a shipment in another town. Someone heard of a truck making it through. Someone knows someone who hasn't eaten in 3 days but still gave away their last can of corn. That's the currency now. What you know, what you've heard. The thin thread that ties us to the idea that things haven't collapsed completely. Not yet. I keep this mic hot not because I think I'll fix any of it, but because I owe it to the voices who still believe in being heard. This is Jordan Hale. Still on 99.3 FM. Still listening, still here. I'll stay with you as long as the signal holds. There's something different in the air tonight. Not colder, not quieter. Just thinner. Like the weight of everything has been pressing for so long that even the sky's begun to stretch, trying to hold what it can't carry anymore. I walked past a row of vending machines on the way here. Most of the glass was shattered. One still had lights blinking behind cracked plastic, stuck on a frozen message. Please insert cash. The buttons were worn, the change slot bent open. Someone had stuffed dried leaves into the coin return tray. I don't know if it was a joke or desperation. Sometimes now they look the same. I found a wrapper nearby, empty but folded clean, like someone had eaten slowly, carefully, treating every crumb like it might be the last. It was a granola bar, nothing fancy, probably stale, but whoever ate it must have held onto it for hours, maybe days, waiting for the right moment. I sat with that wrapper in my hand longer than I'd planned. I couldn't throw it away. I left it there. It wasn't mine. A woman called from a suburb outside Nashville. She said her neighborhood held a meeting last week, not for safety, not for crime, but to vote on who had food left. They didn't ask for volunteers. They didn't even ask for names. They just stared at each other until someone finally stood up and said, "I've got rice. 2 bags." She said after that, 3 others stood. They pooled it. Not much, barely enough. But it became a kind of contract. If you give now, we'll remember. If you need later, we'll come to you. She didn't say whether it worked, just that they tried. There's a difference between being hungry and being starved. I think we're past the point of physical signs. People walk slower now, not because they're tired, but because speed costs energy, and energy's the last thing anyone can afford to spend. I got a letter from someone in a small mountain town in Colorado. No power, no internet, just handwritten ink on torn notebook paper. They described trading stories for potatoes, literal stories. If you could make someone laugh or cry or just remember something other than the taste of metal in their mouth, they'd give you one. The writer said she'd told the same story 3 times already and only changed the ending once. Said the 4th time she told it, she didn't even ask for food. She just wanted to see someone smile. Her name was Clara. She signed it with a little sketch of a steaming cup. I've never met her, but I miss her already. Someone from San Diego said they've started drying orange peels and chewing them like gum. Said the bitterness helps distract the mouth from the absence. Said their neighbor eats coffee grounds raw and swears it keeps the body alert. I don't know what that does to a person over time, but I understand the instinct. To keep the engine running, even if the tank's long since empty. A man told me he boiled shoelaces once, just to hear something bubble. Said he didn't eat it, just needed the noise. Said silence made him feel like his walls were closing in. I think about that more than I should. There's a girl, young, maybe 15, who keeps calling from a shelter near St. Paul. She doesn't ask questions. She just reads poems, not hers, books she found in the rubble of an old school library. She reads them out loud over the static. Some I've heard before, others feel new, but her voice is steady, soft, like a candlelight behind a dirty window. Last night, she read one about a man sitting in a field, counting the stars until he fell asleep. She stopped halfway through and said, "I can't see the stars from here." Then she hung up. I hope she calls again. I spoke to a man near the border of Idaho and Washington. He said his town put together a list of skills, things people could trade instead of food: sewing, fixing boots, cleaning water. One man offered to sing. Just that. No instrument, no tools, just songs. They let him in, not because they thought it would feed them, but because something inside them remembered that survival isn't just about the body. It's about keeping the things that remind you what the body's for. There are whispers of government trucks rerouting supplies, not to towns, to military zones. I can't confirm it. But people are noticing the same thing. Fewer stops, fewer drops. Long stretches of road that used to be busy, now empty, dust-covered and silent. A woman from Wyoming told me she saw a convoy 3 days ago. 18-wheelers, spotless, tightly spaced, no markings, no sirens, no intention to stop. She waved. No one looked. She said it felt like watching ghosts move through a living world. I get messages from people who say they're down to their last can, last slice, last grain, and they ask what they should do, where they should go, who they should trust. And I tell them the truth. I don't know. I'm not a guide. I'm not a planner. I'm not even sure I belong on this mic some nights. I'm just here because someone has to be. Because if I shut it off, the silence wins. And if the silence wins, we forget what it was like to be heard. So I'm here. This is Jordan Hale. Still alive. Still empty, still on 99.3 FM. The last frequency. If you're out there and you've got breath left, use it. Say your name. Tell your story. Let the silence know it hasn't swallowed everything. I keep thinking about the word leftovers. It used to mean something warm, something simple, a second helping, a midnight snack after the kids had gone to bed. It was the comfort of a fridge light blinking on when you didn't know what else to reach for. A cold slice of pizza, the corner of a casserole tray, a plastic container with someone's name scrawled in marker across the top. Now leftovers are just what hasn't been stolen yet. I heard from a man in Toledo who said he found an open cupboard in an abandoned apartment. Half a bag of rice, expired by 2 years. He cried when he saw it, not because he was grateful, but because he realized someone must have left in a hurry, left something they needed, something they didn't want to give up but had to. He cooked it anyway, said it tasted like dirt and sorrow, but it filled the silence. There's a woman in Kansas City who's been making soup from rainwater and corn husks. She boils it for hours, skims off the top, adds salt if she has it. She serves it in paper cups. Said she doesn't charge, doesn't ask, doesn't even speak. Just ladles it out one by one, and if someone says thank you, she nods. If they cry, she lets them. That's how we survive now. Not through orders, through gestures. A voice came in earlier from somewhere near Sacramento. I didn't catch his name. He spoke slowly, like he was holding back something big. He said his brother stole food from their own neighbor, a sack of potatoes hidden behind a crawl space. Said he didn't know until after. That when he asked his brother why, the man didn't answer. Just looked down and whispered. I thought they were gone. But they weren't. The neighbor came home the next day and found the food missing. They didn't shout. They didn't accuse. They just sat on the front steps and stared at the dirt like maybe something would grow if they watched long enough. The caller said he hasn't slept since. I got another message. This one scratched into cardboard and left near the edge of the old train station where someone must have known I'd pass by. The letters were big, rough, uneven. It read, "We trade clothes for milk. Clean only." It wasn't signed, just wedged under a broken step where the wind couldn't take it. I didn't touch it. I know what it's like to feel like everything you have left needs to be seen before it's taken, even if all you have left is a clean shirt. There was a boy walking down the road yesterday, dragging a toy truck by a string. The wheels didn't turn. The plastic was cracked, but he pulled it like it mattered, like it still worked, like it still had weight. I asked where he was going. He didn't look at me, just said, "Mom said there's bread at the old gas station." There wasn't, but he kept walking anyway. That's what gets me. The movement, the refusal to stay still, to accept that today will be like yesterday. Because if we stop moving, even in small ways, we start to disappear. I spoke to someone near El Paso who's been keeping a journal of smells. Not flavors, not meals, just scents. Burnt toast, moldy oranges, wet flour. He says he reads the list out loud when the hunger gets too loud. He says it helps remind him what life used to taste like. I told him I understood. Because I do. There's a girl in a camp outside Edmonton who's been teaching kids how to boil pine needles for tea. Not because it tastes good, because it's warm. She calls it forest broth. Says it helps them sleep. Says it makes them feel like they're doing something brave. She says the younger ones pretend they're wizards making potions. I don't know how to explain how much that breaks me. I think about the first week when this all began, when prices jumped and shelves emptied and people thought, surely this is temporary. I remember the way everyone clung to routines, still went shopping, still checked circulars, still made lists. We don't make lists anymore. We make deals, we make trades, we make peace with hunger. And yet, there's a man outside Louisville who's been roasting sunflower seeds in an old tin can. He does it over a fire behind the church ruins. He says it smells like popcorn if you close your eyes. People gather around just to watch. Nobody talks. They just breathe it in. And that's enough for now. This is Jordan Hale, broadcasting tonight like I did last night, sitting in the dark with a pen in my hand and too much silence between each breath, still at 99.3 FM, still alive, still hungry. If you're listening, I don't care what you have or what you've lost. Just call in. Tell me what you smelled today. Tell me what you miss. Tell me you're still here, even if it's just barely. I haven't heard a microwave beep in over a month. It's strange the things you notice once they're gone. That tiny, bright sound that used to mark time between hunger and relief. It wasn't just about food. It was about certainty, about knowing that in 2 minutes, something warm would be waiting for you. You didn't have to fight for it. You didn't have to choose who got the last bite. You just stood there, half watching the numbers count down, trusting that it would be enough. I don't think I'll ever trust numbers again. A woman from Oregon called last night. Her voice was quiet, a little raspy, like she hadn't spoken much that day. She said she used to be a baker, ran a shop with her sister, cinnamon rolls, scones, fresh loaves every morning. She said the worst part isn't not having flour or sugar or yeast. It's the muscle memory. She wakes up every morning before the sun, walks to her kitchen, reaches for things that aren't there. Her hands go through the motions without thinking, measuring, mixing, kneading the air. She said it's like her body refuses to admit the ovens are cold now. She ended the call by saying, "I still wash my hands like I'm covered in dough." And then she hung up. There's something about hunger that makes people quieter, not just physically. It's like their sentences lose weight, their words shrink down. Every call I get now starts the same. A pause, like they're testing the world before speaking into it, making sure they haven't lost their voice too. I got a letter, one of the few that made it through. No return address, just a smudged stamp and torn envelope. Inside was a child's drawing. Crayons, mostly blue and red. A house, a sun, 2 stick figures holding hands. Underneath, in uneven handwriting, "We had eggs." That's all it said. I stared at it for a long time, not because it was sad, but because it wasn't. It was hope, trapped in a world that no longer has room for it. There's a road near what used to be a big box grocery south of Columbus. The building's half burned, roof caved in, parking lot stripped to gravel. But every day, people still walk by, not to shop, to look. I talked to a man who walks that road daily. He says it helps him remember what it felt like to make choices, to pick between brands, to hold 3 types of cereal in your arms and complain about prices that now seem impossibly low. He said, "Back then, I didn't think I was rich." But I was. We all were. We just didn't know it. Someone else, older, maybe in her 60s, said she stopped talking about meals entirely. She calls them bites now. You don't set a table for a bite, she told me. You just eat it and keep moving. There's no ceremony left. In New Mexico, a woman's teaching her kids to chew gum slowly, even after the flavor's gone. Says it tricks the body into thinking it's fed. Says the younger one swallows it sometimes. She tries not to panic. Says, at least it's something in his stomach. There are camps forming along the outskirts of abandoned towns. Not cities, small places, crossroads with no names. They build with what's left. Plastic sheets, broken pallets, shopping carts bent into fences. And in the middle of it all, there's always one thing: a pot. Doesn't matter what's in it. Could be leaves, could be rain. But it boils, or tries to, and people gather because warmth is still a kind of nourishment. I got a call from someone living in a storage unit. He said he traded an old family photo for a can of ravioli. Said the guy who took the photo didn't even ask who it was, just looked at the frame and nodded. I didn't ask what the picture meant to him. I didn't have to. His voice told me everything. This isn't just a crisis of food. It's a crisis of memory, of self. Every trade chips away at the person you were before. Every deal you make with your hunger asks you to forget a little more. And yet, we keep making them. Because the alternative is emptier. I haven't eaten since yesterday morning. Half a protein bar, stale as hell. I saved the wrapper. Not because I'll reuse it. Because it reminded me of routine. The kind of morning where you tear one open with one hand while texting with the other. When food was background noise. Now it's the whole song. This is Jordan Hale. My throat hurts. My head's heavy. My voice is tired. But I'm still here, still pushing this signal out as far as it'll go. 99.3 FM, the last frequency. If you're near a fire, keep it going. If you have a match, guard it like it's breath. We are not in tomorrow. We are buried deep in today. And I need to know you're still out there. It rained last night. The first real rain we've had in weeks. I didn't sleep through it. I sat under the awning, eyes wide, watching drops slide down rusted gutters like they knew where they were going. It didn't feel like a gift. Not at first. But after a while, I realized something. No one ran. No one ducked for cover. They just let it fall. People stood in it like plants cracking dry soil, trying to remember what life used to feel like. I saw a boy holding out a bucket with both hands. He didn't move, didn't speak. Just let the water rise inside until it overflowed onto his wrists. I hope he drank it. Somewhere out there, someone's boiling weeds. Someone else is trading half a cracker for a blanket. In Texas, I heard from a woman who found 3 cans of soup in a condemned church. She said she was shaking when she opened the first one, not because she was scared of what was inside, but because she wasn't sure her hands remembered how to use a can opener. She said it tasted like metal and salt, and maybe a little bit like hope. She didn't eat the second can. She gave it to a stranger on the road. Said she didn't know his name, but he looked like someone who hadn't heard a kind voice in weeks. I wonder if he remembers her face. I got a message scratched into a piece of siding, ripped from what used to be someone's house. All it said was, "Is this what the end of hunger looks like?" I've been thinking about that all night, because hunger used to mean growling stomachs, skipping lunch, choosing between meals and medicine. It was a word we used when we forgot breakfast or started a diet. Now it's something else. Now, it's the sound of teeth grinding in the middle of the night. It's the look you give your child when they ask, again, if there's anything left. It's the way you lie, without saying a word. I had a dream last night. I was standing in the cereal aisle, back when it still meant something, but all the boxes were blank. No names, no colors, just rows and rows of cardboard, identical, and not a single one had weight when I lifted it. They crumpled in my hands like air. I woke up with my heart pounding. There's a man who called from South Carolina. He used to work in logistics, mapped routes for freight companies. He told me we should have seen this coming years ago. Said the moment we started optimizing everything down to the last pallet, the last calorie, the last second, we sealed our own throat shut. No room for error, no slack, no mercy. Now it takes a miracle just to get an apple 3 towns over. I asked him what he was eating now. He said he hadn't had fruit in a month, just rice, and he's running out. A woman in Maine said she tried to grow spinach in a plastic tote. Said it worked for a little while, until the cold got too sharp. She cried when she had to rip the last leaf off, not because she was hungry, but because it meant the plant had nothing more to give. She said it felt like taking life from something that trusted her. There's a camp not far from here where they've started using rocks to mark who's eaten. You get a small white stone when you arrive. When food is served, you trade it in. If you try to come back twice, you have nothing left to give. They say it's fair. I don't disagree. But something about it feels like rationing humanity itself. A stone for a bowl, a pebble for a life. I read a story from a boy who says he found a sealed box of cereal beneath the floorboards of an old apartment. He didn't open it. He put it on a shelf like a trophy. Every morning he looks at it, doesn't touch it. Says it reminds him that the world was different once. He lives alone. I don't think he'll eat it until the silence becomes worse than the hunger. And maybe that's what all of this is. Now, a waiting room with no appointment, a line that never moves, a radio signal bouncing between ruins, hoping to land on someone still listening. This is Jordan Hale. If you're still standing, I see you. If you're crawling, I hear you. If you're starving, I feel it too. I'm here. I'm still here. 99.3 FM, the last frequency. Say your name. Say anything. The world may be quiet, but we are not gone. Not yet. Someone knocked on my door this morning. That doesn't happen anymore. Not here. Not since everything broke. I didn't answer right away. I sat behind the door and listened. No voice, no movement. Just the quiet tap of someone who still had enough belief in the old ways to knock instead of break. When I finally opened it, there was no one there, just a small, paper-wrapped package sitting on the step. I don't know who left it. Inside was a piece of stale bread, hard at the edges, soft in the center, and a note, written in pencil on the back of an old lottery ticket. I had 2. You looked thinner. I stared at that note for a long time. There are days when I think the only thing holding this world together is the kindness of people who've already lost too much. I got a call last night from someone just outside Fargo. His family used to run a diner. The kind with greasy counters and coffee that never stopped flowing. He said he walks past it every day, even though it's boarded up. He told me he still dreams about the smell of bacon, the sizzle of eggs on the grill, the bell that rang when an order was ready. He said the bell was his favorite sound in the world, said it meant someone was about to eat. I asked him when the last time he ate was. He said 3 days. Then he changed the subject. There's a woman I hear from sometimes, somewhere in Montreal. She doesn't say much, just sends recordings. Her voice reading recipes from an old cookbook. No music, no commentary. Just the steps, the ingredients, the instructions. Last night she read a recipe for tomato soup. The real kind. With cream, with basil, with onions sautéed until golden. I cried while listening. Not because I miss the taste, but because I miss believing something like that was ever ordinary. There's a teenager in Baltimore who said she and her friends have started breaking into vending machines, not to steal food, but to find expired snacks they think might still be safe. She said they treat it like treasure hunting, that they laugh when they find a candy bar or a pack of cookies. She said yesterday they found a single bag of pretzels. They split it 5 ways. She told me she saved one piece in her pocket, wrapped it in tissue. Not to eat later, just to hold on to it. She said it felt like having a secret. A father from Spokane said he caught a raccoon 2 nights ago. Said it took everything in him to kill it. He apologized to it while it died. Said he cooked it in silence. Said his daughter cried when she saw what it was, but she ate it anyway. He hasn't forgiven himself, and he's not asking for that. He just needed someone to know. A woman in Miami told me she stood in line at a supermarket yesterday, even though the shelves were empty. Just stood there. Pretending. Said she couldn't go home yet. Said it helped to feel like she was still part of something. She said the man in front of her held a shopping basket with nothing in it. Just stood still, eyes on the floor. She didn't say anything to him. Didn't need to. I think about the sound of grocery stores, the beeps at the register, the soft thump of cans being stacked, the squeak of carts rolling over cracked tiles. They used to be background noise. Now they're ghosts. The only things that make sound now are people trying not to disappear. A boy in Nebraska called in, said he found a whole box of oatmeal packets in a collapsed storage shed. He didn't eat them. Not right away. Said he walked them 3 miles to a community shelter where an old woman made them all into porridge. Thin, barely enough flavor, but warm. He said he's never been prouder of anything in his life. I asked him if he took any for himself. He said, I didn't need to. That sentence stayed with me all day. This is Jordan Hale. I haven't showered in a week. I haven't seen fresh produce in twice that. But I'm still breathing, still talking, still waiting. 99.3 FM, the last frequency. If your cupboard is empty, speak anyway. If your stomach growls, let the world hear it. This silence is trying to bury us. We answer it with names, with stories, with voices. We're still here. You're still here. And that means something. I passed a sign on the highway this morning. It used to say, next gas 17 miles, but someone had spray painted over it in red. Next meal? Who knows? That's the kind of world we're in now. You don't count miles. You count minutes since your last bite. You count people in line ahead of you. You count cans in someone else's cart and wonder if they'd fight for them. You don't think about tomorrow. You just hope tonight doesn't hurt too much. I've stopped setting alarms. There's nothing to wake up for. Not really. I rise when the cold gets too sharp. When the hunger edges in and won't let go. When the sky starts turning the kind of gray that means another day's coming, whether you're ready or not. A man called from a checkpoint in Georgia. He didn't say his name, just said he was a trucker who used to drive food shipments. Said he hauled lettuce from California, potatoes from Idaho, dairy from Wisconsin. Said he never thought about how fragile it all was. Just routes, just timetables, just gas, speed, unload. He told me the worst thing he ever did was throw away produce that had gone a few hours over schedule. Company rules, he said. No exceptions. He dumped 10 pallets once. Perfect apples, untouched pears, bananas not even bruised. He said he would have killed for just one of them now. I didn't know what to say to that. I still don't. There's a group living in the basement of an abandoned hotel near St. Louis. They've cleared out a boiler room and turned it into a kitchen of sorts. Not much. Just a camping stove, a few stolen pots, and a wall of scribbled recipes. Not for what they have, for what they remember. Meatloaf, chicken pot pie, baked ziti. They read them out loud before meals. I talked to one of them. Her name's Leah. She told me it helps to speak the old world into the new one, even if the ingredients don't exist anymore. Said it keeps her daughter from forgetting what a kitchen used to feel like. She said, if I can't feed her memories, at least I can feed her stories. And maybe that's all we have left. Each other's words, held out like warm hands in the dark. Someone slipped a cassette under my door. No name, just a scratchy recording of what sounded like a crowd at a grocery store. Not this world, a past one. You could hear the buzz of fluorescent lights, the beep of checkout scanners, a kid asking for cereal, laughter. I listened to it 5 times before I could breathe again. That sound, that buzz, used to be so annoying. Now it feels like sunlight through a locked door. I heard from a boy near Pittsburgh who said his family eats in silence now. Not because they're angry, because talking takes energy. And because if someone says they're still hungry, there's nothing anyone can do. He said his little sister stopped asking for seconds last week. I got a call from someone in Anchorage. Said the ground's too hard to bury anything now. Not people, not pasts, not regret. She said she left an open can of soup outside by mistake. Came back to find it frozen solid, spoon still sticking out. She laughed when she said it. A short, bitter sound. Said she thought about licking the ice like it was a popsicle. Then she cried. There's a town somewhere in the plains where they ring a bell every night at 7 p.m. Not because they have food. Not because there's anything to gather for. Just because they want to hear something other than wind. If you hear the bell, you're supposed to answer back. Pots. Pans. Anything metal. It's the only thing that connects them now. Echoes. I was going to eat today. I had a plan. A packet of soup, dusty but sealed. But then a stranger came to the station. Hadn't spoken in 2 days, lips cracked, coat torn. I didn't think. I just handed it over. He didn't thank me. Just clutched it like it was the last page of a book he'd been looking for. I watched him walk away without looking back. And you know what? I'd do it again. Every time. Because I don't know what else to be, if not someone who still remembers what it meant to feed another person before yourself. This is Jordan Hale, still here, still dry-mouthed, still hungry, still on 99.3 FM, the last frequency. I'm not promising hope. I'm not offering rescue. But I can be a voice in the dark, a crack in the silence. And tonight, that has to be enough. I heard something strange today. Laughter. Not the forced kind. Not the brittle kind that leaks out when everything is breaking. This was real. Deep. Free. carried on the wind like it had forgotten the world was burning. I stepped outside the station and followed it, half convinced I was losing my mind. There were 3 kids down by the old rail yard, playing with a busted shopping cart like it was a race car, 1 pushing, 2 riding. The wheels barely moved, metal grinding against rust, but they were smiling like they'd just discovered time travel. No food in sight, no adults nearby, just motion and joy, and a few seconds where they weren't hungry, even if they were. I didn't interrupt. I just stood there, watching, letting it soak in like sunlight I didn't know I needed. Later, I spoke with a man in Utah. He said his town's grocery store is still standing, but the only thing left on the shelves is dish soap and greeting cards. He goes in sometimes just to sit. Says it feels like church, quiet, hollow, full of things that no longer serve the living. He told me he found a birthday card once, unsigned, had a picture of a cat wearing a party hat. He took it home and put it on his table, like it was a guest. Said it made the room feel less empty. I believe him. Another voice came through from Ontario. She didn't give her name, didn't give much at all, just a single sentence. I used to say grace before dinner. Now I say sorry. I didn't ask what she meant. I didn't need to. A man from Tennessee called in, said he saw a group trading food at an old playground. Juice boxes for rice, peanut butter for aspirin. One woman handed over a tin of sardines in exchange for a child's storybook. Not because she wanted to read it, because her daughter had forgotten what a book felt like. She said it helped her remember what bedtime used to be. There's no bedtime now. There's sleep, if you're lucky, and noise, if you're not. Someone near Cleveland found an old soda machine, plugged it in with a car battery, said it still worked. For a few hours, people lined up to buy warm cans of Sprite for whatever they had, matches, nails, socks, anything. Not because they were thirsty, but because the machine made them feel normal. He said they didn't even drink the soda. Most just held it. A woman told me she taught her son to chew slower. Told him to count in his head while he ate, to make the bites last longer. She said, he's too good at it now. I can't tell when he's pretending to be full. We used to talk about food like it was culture, like it was identity. Now it's silence. Now it's secrets. Now it's something you protect like a wound. There's a boy in Kansas who sends me letters written on the backs of junk mail. No return address, just stories, little ones. Yesterday's note said, I found a cookie in a toolbox. It was hard, still sweet. I didn't tell anyone. He ends every letter the same way. Still here. That's how I feel every time I speak into this mic. Still here. Still talking to a country too hungry to listen. Still believing someone out there is nodding along, even if they've got nothing left to say. This is Jordan Hale. Still burning signal. Still chasing breath. 99.3 FM. The last frequency. If your hands are shaking, you're not alone. If your cupboards are empty, I know the sound they make when they close. Keep writing, keep calling, keep breathing. This frequency is ours. It's broken, but it's ours. I tried to boil tea this morning, had half a tea bag left, just scraps in the paper, nothing you'd pay attention to in a better year. Poured hot water over it and watched the color swirl like smoke. It wasn't tea. Not really. Just memory steeped in steam. But it helped. For a minute, it helped. Someone from Denver called and told me she hasn't had anything warm in 9 days. No heat, no broth, No soup. She said cold food makes the silence louder. Said it feels like punishment. I asked what she was eating now. She said raw oats and vinegar. I asked why vinegar. She said, because it stings, and sting feels like something. There was a boy who left a voicemail sometime after midnight. Voice shaking. Said he found a single apple in a school desk. Didn't know how long it had been there. Didn't care. He said he took it home and shared it with his mom. One bite at a time, like they were splitting treasure. He said they didn't speak while they ate. Just chewed, swallowed, passed it back and forth. He said when it was gone, they both started crying. I've started dreaming of grocery stores again. Not the kind we used to rush through. Not the sterile aisles. These ones are quiet, dusty, lit by sunlight and candle wax. Every product is something I've forgotten how to pronounce. Jars of things I've never eaten. I reach for them, and they dissolve. Then I wake up, hungry again. I heard from a man near Billings. He said there's a stretch of road where people leave food instead of taking it. 1 can, 1 bag, 1 apple, if they're lucky. No names, no guards, just trust. He called it the offering line. He said nobody speaks about it. They just stop, leave something, and move on. He said he once left 2 granola bars and came back the next day to find a coat. That kind of trust doesn't come easy anymore, but it still exists. There's a woman in Tulsa who leaves loaves of bread on bus benches, not fresh, not pretty, just flat, hard slices she makes from flour and water. She doesn't stay to see who takes them. She says it helps her sleep at night. She told me, if someone eats because of me, then I can go one more day. A teenager from El Paso said her little brother has started drawing food. Crayons, scraps of paper, the back of envelopes, pancakes, hamburgers, ice cream. He stacks the drawings on a plate and pretends they're real. She said he offered her a picture of spaghetti for dinner last night. She took it, said thank you, pretended to chew. Sometimes make-believe is the only meal left. There's a retired nurse in New Hampshire who sends me handwritten logs of what people in her town are trading. 1 egg for a candle, a handful of rice for half a pack of batteries, duct tape for tea, a broken wristwatch for a single onion. She said the bartering board is now the busiest place in town. Not the clinic, not the church, not the market. She said people linger there even when they have nothing to trade, just to remember what need sounds like when it's spoken out loud. I don't know how long we can keep doing this, how long we can survive off canned goods and silence, off stories passed through radios and hands that shake from weakness. But I know this, we are still trying. Every trade, every drawing, every silent meal shared by candlelight is proof that we haven't let the hunger change what makes us human. Not yet. This is Jordan Hale. I still have my voice. You still have yours. 99.3 FM, the last frequency. We can't eat words, but sometimes they're all we have. And sometimes they're enough to get us through the night. I spoke with a man from outside Raleigh. Said his grandfather used to tell him stories about the Great Depression. Back then, people waited in bread lines, hoping. Some left with loaves, others with nothing but the weight of being seen and passed over. This man, his name was Darrell, said it's different now. No lines, no loaves, just movement and shadows. People don't stand together. They scatter, because hunger now comes with suspicion. He said, I don't know who's hungrier, me or the man watching me from across the street. And he wasn't asking for help. He was just tired of pretending not to be scared. A woman from Boise sent in a recording of her daughter humming. Just humming. No words. She said the tune started when she ran out of snacks to pack in her daughter's lunchbox. Said her daughter made it up on the spot and called it her pretend sandwich song. Now she hums it at dinner. There's still no food, but the song stays. And it's not enough. But it's something. I got a message from two brothers living above an old laundromat in Queens. They rigged a pulley system to haul up supplies when they still had some. Now it just hangs there, empty, swaying in the wind. They said they keep it up because it reminds them of movement, of action, of days when bringing food upstairs was still possible. They said it makes them feel like they haven't given up. I don't know why that struck me so hard. Maybe because I've started noticing what I hold on to. I've got an old wooden spoon on my desk. Never used it. Don't plan to. But I like how it feels in my hand. Solid, familiar, like I might someday stir something warm again. A boy in Sacramento called to say he found a can of pineapples buried in a park under a bench. It was dented, faded, probably years old, but it was sealed, and it was his. He told me he opened it with a rock, split it with a girl from the next street over. He said they didn't know each other before. Now they walk together every evening, just in case another can is out there. They don't talk much, but they walk. Sometimes survival isn't about food. Sometimes it's about rhythm, about motion, about knowing you'll be moving forward with someone, even if you're both empty. A man from Detroit said his wife makes soup from hot water, garlic powder, and the memory of chicken. That's what she calls it, memory soup. She stirs it like it matters. They sip it like it means more than it does. He said they always thank her after. I asked why. He said, because it feels right. There's a girl in Halifax who started planting lentils in old tea tins. No garden, just windowsills. She waters them with melted snow. Says watching them grow gives her something to measure other than hunger. She told me, if I get one sprout, I'll call that a win. If I get two, I'll call it a miracle. I don't know if it will work, but she believes in it, and that's stronger than any fertilizer I know. Every day I come to this mic hoping for a miracle. Not a feast, not a truckload of fresh bread, just proof that the human spirit can stretch this thin and still hum like an old wire in the wind. So far, it keeps holding. Barely, but it holds. This is Jordan Hale, still broadcasting, still believing. 99.3 FM, the last frequency. We are hungry, we are hurting, but we are not gone. Not yet, not tonight. There was a man on the line last night. Name was Russell. He spoke slowly, like each word had to climb out of a pit. Said he used to work in logistics, not the top floor kind. He drove, picked up, dropped off, groceries, diapers, stuff people needed but never thought about. He knew every shortcut across his city. Now, he said, he only walks one road, the one from his building to the shelter and back. Nothing to pick up, nothing to deliver, just memory chasing his heels. He said something that stuck with me. People don't cry because they're hungry, he said. They cry because they can't stop lying about it. A woman from Amarillo told me she's been mixing water with instant coffee grounds she found behind a gas station. Not to drink, just to smell. Said it reminds her of mornings that didn't feel like punishment. She hasn't seen real bread in weeks. Calls it a ghost food now, something that visits in dreams and vanishes by daylight. I read a note someone slipped under our fence, handwritten. said their grandmother had a birthday this week, 93 years old. They found a stale chocolate bar and wrapped it in an old newspaper comic strip. Said she cried when she opened it, not because of the chocolate, because of the Garfield cartoon. She hadn't laughed in months. That was the gift. I can't stop thinking about that. The ways we feed each other now have nothing to do with calories, nothing to do with nutrition. Just sparks, tiny ones, the kind you guard like fire under wet wood. A voice came through from outside Omaha, a teenage boy. Said he found his mom staring into the fridge even though they both knew it was empty. He didn't say anything, just stood next to her. After a minute, she said, "I keep thinking it'll fill itself if I just look long enough." He said that scared him more than anything. A woman in Montreal said she's been boiling water with cinnamon sticks she kept in a jar from before, just to make the kitchen smell like something real, something warm. She lets the steam fog the windows, pretends it's snow outside and not ash from the fires at the edge of the district. She told me, "I need to trick myself into thinking I'm safe, just for a little." I understand that, completely. A kid from New Orleans mailed me a Polaroid. No note, just a picture of an empty bowl on a cracked porch rail. I looked at it for a long time, trying to understand. Then I realized the picture wasn't about the bowl. It was about what surrounded it. The sky, the light, the shape of the world still turning. He was telling me, this is what we see now. This is how we measure our days. By what isn't there. There's a church near Helena that rings its bell every time someone brings food to the door. Doesn't matter what it is. 1 can of beans, 1 ring. A half loaf of bread, 1 ring. It's not about scale. It's about reminder. That somewhere in all this, giving is still possible. They rang the bell twice yesterday. There was no choir. But people wept. I don't know how much longer we can survive like this. I don't know how far this thing goes or what comes after. But I do know this. The quiet has changed. It's not just empty anymore. It's layered. With grief. With waiting. With the sounds we used to ignore. Shoes on tile. Grocery bags rustling, freezers humming. We ache for those noises now. We would trade anything just to hear them one more time. This is Jordan Hale, still standing by, still speaking low. This is 99.3 FM, the last frequency. You are not forgotten. You are not alone. If you hear me, you're still here. And that counts for something. There's a stretch of road near what used to be Baton Rouge where the stores are all burned out. Not looted, not emptied, just hollowed. The bones of buildings where food used to sit waiting for hands, waiting for dinners, waiting for routine. Now there's just black glass and busted coolers tipped on their sides. A man I spoke to walked the whole block looking for salt. Not because he needed the flavor. He said it was for preserving the last fish he pulled from the canal before it died off. He didn't find any. He said, "The fish spoiled." I buried it with my shoes on. I think that's what broke me. Him telling me about the shoes, as if the details still matter. And I guess they do. That's what keeps the story from going silent. There was a couple out in Santa Fe who lit a fire in a rusted sink. Not for warmth, not for cooking, just so the glow would bounce off the walls like it used to when they had overhead lights. They told me it made the room feel like it was still theirs. They're down to 1 meal every 2 days. They said they chew slower now, whisper to each other between bites, try to hold off the last swallow until the candles burn low. It's not about the food anymore. It's about the time you spend with it. I heard from a young girl just outside of Toledo. She said her dad taught her how to eat peanut butter with a spoon and count backwards from 50 while chewing, so she wouldn't eat it all at once. She told me she only does it when he's asleep now, so he won't feel guilty watching her. She said, "It tastes better when I pretend I don't need it." Someone from Boise called in to say their store just started letting people in 2 at a time. No carts, no talking, no eye contact. You get 5 minutes, you leave with what you can carry. No bags allowed. If someone drops something, nobody helps. That's where we are now. We used to talk in the cereal aisle. Remember that? Casual conversation. Strangers nodding at strangers. Now, there are no nods, no questions, only fingers clenched around dented cans like they're the last breath of the day. And sometimes they are. A man from Regina said he built a shelf out of old fence posts just to feel like he had a pantry again. It holds 1 box of tea, a cracked jar of lentils, a bottle of soy sauce. He organizes them every night before bed, wipes the dust away, arranges them by height. He said it helps. He said, "It lets me pretend there's still control somewhere." That word, control, feels like a myth now, like a dream someone else had and never shared. There was an old message on the answering machine when I came in this morning. No voice, just a recording of rain falling on a tin roof. No music, no words, just that constant quiet drum of water on metal. It was beautiful, painfully beautiful. And I wondered, was that someone's way of saying they're okay? Or was it a goodbye? I'll never know. But I saved the tape, because sometimes the only thing you can hold on to is the sound of something gentle. This is Jordan Hale, still whispering through the static, still reaching through the noise. 99.3 FM, the last frequency. Tonight is cold, but you are still warm somewhere inside. You are still here, and that is everything. I was listening to the building creak today. Nothing else was moving, not even the birds. I think they've gone further south if there's anything left to find there. The fridge doesn't hum anymore. The lights flicker only when the wind plays with the wires overhead. So when this place makes a noise now, I notice. There was a sound, like someone dragging their hand across the wall. It wasn't real, but I still waited for it to come again. That's the kind of loneliness we're in now. Not just the absence of people, but the hunger for sound that means something. A woman outside Edmonton said her neighborhood has started walking together once a day. Quiet, single file, no destination, just to feel like people again. They walk the same stretch of street at sunset. One of them brings a pot lid to clang if something dangerous shows up. Otherwise, no one speaks. She called it the procession. She said, "It's what we do now instead of prayer." I understand that. There's something sacred in repetition, in choosing motion even when everything around you has come to a stop. A man in Little Rock said he watches his neighbor's porch light like a heartbeat. It's on solar, weak but steady. He said it's the only glow for 5 blocks, and it's how he knows the night hasn't swallowed everyone. He told me he stares at it until it dies around 3 a.m. every morning, and then he sleeps. Someone else from Nova Scotia shared a story about her mother. Said they found a jar of honey that had crystallized, hard and golden like amber. They boiled water and thinned it out, drizzled it over the last stale biscuit in the house, and split it 4 ways. She said they ate in silence, tears streaming down her sister's face. Not because they were sad, but because it was sweet. She said, "We'd forgotten what sweet tasted like." There was a boy in Wisconsin who called just to ask if I remembered what apples used to smell like when you bit into them. I told him yes. I told him about the first time I ate a Granny Smith in my grandmother's kitchen. How sharp it was, how the juice stuck to my fingers, how I didn't even wash it first because I was too hungry from the walk home. He said, "I just wanted to hear someone describe it again." That was the whole call. A father from Flagstaff left a voice message last night. Said his son drew a picture of a supermarket with full shelves and gave it to him for his birthday. He pinned it above the bed and tells himself it's a window. Said the drawing is crooked, but it's the straightest thing in his life right now. That stayed with me. How we pin up memories to keep the walls from falling inward. I got a letter from someone living above a pawn shop in Detroit. No name, just an envelope lined with old receipts. Inside were the words, "I broke my rule today. I stole 1 box of pasta. I left cash in its place, a crumpled bill and coins I didn't count. I don't know if that makes it right, but it made it feel less wrong. I don't have answers for them, but I get it. I get the way hunger bends the spine of your beliefs, quietly and without asking for permission. This is what the country sounds like now. Not shouting, not panic, just quiet voices scratching their way across wires, trying to land somewhere that doesn't echo back empty. This is Jordan Hale. Still waiting, still holding, still hoping. 99.3 FM, the last frequency. If you hear this, you are not gone. If you've held your breath today, just to make the food last longer, I know what that feels like. This signal is frayed, but it's yours. A boy from near San Antonio called earlier. He was maybe 10, maybe 12, hard to tell with the way his voice kept cracking, not from age, but from the cold in his breath. He said he and his older sister keep making up recipes for things they don't have. Today's was banana cloud pie. The ingredients were jokes, laughter, some warm air, a clean spoon. He said they served it for breakfast and then went back to sleep because dreams don't cost anything. I didn't know what to say. I just listened. That's all I could do. A man from Portland left a message after dark. He used to work at a checkout line in a grocery store. He said the beep of the scanner used to live in his head like a metronome. He misses that sound, the way it meant something was moving, going home, becoming dinner. He said, "Now I'd give anything to hear that beep again. It meant people still had choices." That word hit harder than I expected. Choices. We don't think of food as choice until it's gone, until you have only one thing left, and the choice disappears. Then it becomes survival, and survival is just repetition dressed up as effort. I got a quiet call from a grandmother in Syracuse. She said her hands shake too much to write, so she wanted to speak while she could. Said she keeps her last jar of peanut butter under a towel in the cabinet, not because it's hidden, but because it feels too important to see every day. She talks to it sometimes, says things like, "not yet," and "soon," like it's a person or a promise. She told me, it helps to have something to say no to. That made more sense than I wanted it to. A girl from Fresno sent in a drawing of her fridge, not the outside, the inside. It had only 3 things in it: a bottle of ketchup, a slice of bread, and a light bulb that no longer worked. But she drew the light bulb glowing, bright yellow. She told her mom, "It's a magic fridge. It only works if you believe hard enough." Her mother said nothing for a long time. Then she drew her own picture of a frying pan, empty but clean. She told me she hung it on the wall like it was art. And maybe it is. We used to display full plates. Now we display memory. A voice from Jacksonville whispered something into the line this morning. Could barely hear him, barely understand. But what I caught was this. My neighbor traded a can of tuna for a bicycle. Said it was easier to search for food than wait for it to find him. He rides for hours every day now, circling grocery stores like a stray animal, waiting for a delivery that never comes. And still, he rides. I don't know why that made me cry. Maybe because it reminds me that movement feels like living, even when it doesn't go anywhere. Another woman calling from Calgary said her son taped recipes to their kitchen walls. Pancakes, shepherd's pie, chicken noodle soup, all things they don't have. She asked why. He said, "So we don't forget how." The power goes out often where they are. The pages flutter when the wind gets in, but the recipes stay up. Somehow that seems brave. This is Jordan Hale. Still here. Still learning how to hold space for emptiness. 99.3 FM, the last frequency. If you're listening and you've saved something small, a spoonful, a song, a memory, know that it matters. Even if it doesn't fill your stomach, it still feeds something. Someone from New Jersey sent me a photo. Not digital, actual print. They must have used an old Polaroid, or maybe one of those disposable cameras people forgot how to develop until all of this started. It was a picture of a dinner table, except there was no food. Just 4 plates, neatly set, with spoons and forks beside them, napkins folded into squares. Each plate had a single stone in the middle. They eat together every night like that, the note said. They pretend, and sometimes that pretending gets them through the ache in their stomachs. It's not play, it's practice. Practice for a better day. Practice for survival. I don't judge them. I can't. A man out of Vancouver said his wife hums while she stirs boiling water. No food in it. No tea. No broth. Just water. But she stirs it like it matters. He says he doesn't ask why anymore. He just sits at the table and waits for the sound to stop. When she turns off the burner, they call it dinner. Then they go to bed. Sometimes I wonder what the final straw is for each of us. The last thing we stop pretending about. The final comfort we refuse to let go of. A mother in Spokane said she keeps a candy wrapper in her coat pocket. One of those striped peppermints you used to get for free at diners. It's empty, of course. But when things get bad, she closes her eyes and rubs it between her fingers. The crinkle, she says, feels like something living. Her daughter doesn't know she does this. That part's just for her. There was a boy who called from outside Tulsa. His voice was thin, shaking, like he hadn't spoken out loud in days. He said he hasn't seen his dad in almost a week. Last time his dad left with a backpack and came home with a bruised lip and 1 bruised apple. They cut it into 1/8, saved 1 slice for tomorrow. Ate the others in silence. The boy said, "I can still taste it. That's the scary part." I didn't know what to say back, so I didn't say anything for a long time. Just breathed with him. Sometimes that's all that's left, sharing the silence. A woman from Des Moines left a voicemail. She said her grandmother had a trick. When they couldn't afford butter, she'd press mashed potatoes flat and scrape a spoon over the top so it curled up like butter melting. They called it ghost butter. She said she caught herself doing the same thing last night. And then she cried. Not for the hunger, for the memory. That's the difference now. It's not just about what we've lost. It's about how deep that loss runs. It pulls through generations like a thread through fabric, and now the fabric's coming apart. Another voice from somewhere near Tallahassee whispered something I can't forget. She said, "There are days when I forget what full feels like, so I hold water in my mouth a little longer than I need to, just to feel weight again." That sentence hasn't left me. I think it won't. This is Jordan Hale, still tracing the edges of what remains. 99.3 FM, the last frequency. Hold on to the smallest thing that reminds you who you were before this, even if it's an empty wrapper, even if it's just a sound. There's a man in Kansas who calls once a week. Same time, same rhythm. He never gives his name. He just tells me what he's seen. Last night, he said the grocery store 2 blocks over still has the doors open, but nothing left inside. He walked through it anyway. Said the silence was thicker than he expected. Said he could hear the sound of his own shoes against the tile. He stood where the bread used to be and tried to remember what it smelled like. He couldn't. He said, "It's not the hunger that scares me. It's the forgetting." I think he's right. Hunger can be measured. You can count it in missed meals, in sunken cheeks, in sleepless nights. But forgetting? That creeps in quiet. That's where the real danger lives. A woman from Cincinnati said her daughter stopped pretending. She used to play with plastic kitchen sets, rubber fruit, wooden stakes, plastic pizza slices with Velcro. She'd serve them to invisible friends, set the table, say grace. But not anymore. Now she's turned the kitchen into something else. She builds towers with the food toys, stacks them like bricks. She told her mother, "This is what we build with now, not what we eat." A teenager from Mobile said he found a single pack of crackers behind a vending machine, crushed but still sealed. He brought them home, placed them on a folded napkin, and waited until his little sister came back from the neighbors. Then he said, "It's a party." They each got 1 square. Then they danced. No music, just movement. Just enough to remember the rhythm of being alive. There was a message left on the line this morning. A man sobbing. No words, just sobs. He hung up after a minute. I replayed it 4 times. Not because I wanted to hear the pain again, but because it was honest. Pain, at least, reminds us that something inside still works. Another voice came through from New Mexico. Said she's been boiling her dish sponge in hot water with cinnamon bark. Not to eat, just to create a scent. She says it helps with the children, makes the house feel like it's preparing for dinner, even when it isn't. She told me, if the house smells like dinner, they sleep better, even with empty stomachs. A man from Chicago said he saw someone get tackled over a frozen pizza. In broad daylight, in the middle of a store that barely had lights left. He didn't say who won. He just said no one stopped it. And then he said, "We used to fight for space in line. Now we fight for scraps." A child in Halifax called in. No parent nearby. Just her, whispering. Said she had a dream she was in a room made of cereal. She was scared to eat the walls, because if she did, the roof would fall in. I didn't know how to respond. I just told her softly, that she could stay in that dream as long as she needed. This is what we hold on to now. Not solutions, not slogans, just stories, voices, proof that someone, somewhere, is still trying. This is Jordan Hale, still awake, still listening. 99.3 FM, the last frequency. If your world has shrunk to one room, one plate, one breath, know that it's still a world, and you are still in it. There's a little church outside of Boise where the pews have been taken apart and stacked against the walls. The space now serves as a meal hall, but not in the way it once did. There's no soup, no bread, no plates, just a quiet line of people standing under the empty cross, holding out their hands for anything. Yesterday, a man passed around a bag of dried corn husks. Not kernels, not food, just the husks. Some people took one anyway, not because they were edible, but because they wanted to hold something, feel texture, pretend it meant something. A woman told me she tucked hers into her coat pocket, said it reminded her of summers when corn was so cheap you could buy 10 ears for $1. Now, $10 won't even buy you salt, and still, we remember. A man from Missoula left a message with a shaking voice. He said his son asked why the grocery store lights never turn on anymore. He told him it was because they were sleeping, that the food was dreaming, and they had to wait for it to wake up. He told me, I don't know if I lied to comfort him or to comfort myself. Another voice came through from someone near Newark. A nurse, I think. She said the hospital vending machine had become a war zone. Fights over dried granola, over candy bars that used to cost cents. One patient traded his wedding ring for a package of trail mix. She said he didn't even open it right away. Just stared at it, turning it over in his hand like it was a treasure. She said he died the next day. The trail mix was never opened. That story has sat in my chest all day. There's a man just west of St. Louis who's been walking to the same gas station every morning. They haven't had deliveries in weeks, but he still walks there, still checks the shelves, still asks if maybe, just maybe, something came in overnight. The clerk doesn't speak anymore, just shakes his head. But the man keeps walking back. I asked him why. He said, because hope is a muscle. If I stop using it, it dies. A woman from Montreal said she lit her last tea candle last night, not for light, but for warmth. Just enough to cup her hands around it, just enough to see her breath in its glow. She said the flame flickered and disappeared in under an hour. But for that 1 hour, the room felt like hers again. She said, even lies can be kind. Someone else, I don't know where from, said their family has started calling dinner the quiet, because there's nothing to chew, nothing to serve, just the sound of 4 people sitting still, heads bowed, waiting for sleep to take away the sting. They say grace, not for the food, but for the memory of it. This is Jordan Hale, still here, still holding the thread. 99.3 FM, the last frequency. If you hear my voice, it means the silence hasn't won yet. And if you're still imagining warmth where there isn't any, you're not broken. You're surviving.